So how can you apply the fear of or the compromise or miss out smartly, right? So there's a few things. One is getting clear on what it is that you want. Rank your priorities. And if you think about, we set it up with Tim's idea earlier. Tim's priorities wasn't to try and find another part of Sydney. Tim's priorities was to actually go and be somewhere else in the country that gave him the best opportunity of saving that big cash balance that allowed him to move forward. So sometimes it's about being strategic first. It's not like which suburb do I want to be in. It's actually, if to use that, does Sydney serve me? Am I better off being in Adelaide? Do I have family that are interstate and I've moved away? And the fact that I've moved away is making it more difficult for me. Like being super clear on, we sort of call it North Star, your vision, your strategy, whatever you want to call it. Getting that up front is super important. You need to put some work in that before you start getting in the arena.
Yeah, and I'll bring a really practical way of looking at this is, um, Jane would know when I was a lot younger, and I am a social creature, as you know. I obviously feed off other people. If I hadn't seen anyone on the weekend and my mates and something like that, I was a little bit grumpy come Sunday night. And so the reality for us is that we wanted to be and needed to be close to that, because if I'm not going to have happiness, so I might have a nice home, it might be out in the burbs, yeah, but it's not necessarily filling my bucket from an emotional and connection point of view. So I've got to be thinking about that, and so there's a fair bit of slow thinking in that, because a lot of people, to the point I made earlier, if they don't think about that and they just think, well, we'll go and buy and we'll get started in our life out in the burbs, but they've got disconnect with family, that's going to affect them, and property has a lot of entry costs and the exit costs on both ends. So I really like that one first. Number one is to rank your priorities and start thinking about what's important to you.
And then number two is, okay, well, how much can I afford? Like go back to that first part of the quadrant in terms of price. What is my borrowing power and what is my trap surplus and what have I got left over? Because if we start with what we want and then we start from where we are, then we can start to get a better idea of where do I need to be and which part do I need to compromise on, and which of the strategies that we're going to offer up as suggestions that you might need to even consider.
Yeah, and I think that, flows well into point number three, which is, if that is my budget, and we saw Tim, he's gone and said, I need a bigger budget. I need a bigger deposit to get into the areas that I want to get into. So I'm going to go off and save that, so I can potentially come back into the Sydney market with a realistic deposit that might get me, closer to the central business district or closer to where I want to live with the type of property that I want to potentially re-enter the market into as well, is definitely going to be something like that. So that's when you can start exploring creative ways. And what was Tim's creative way, in terms of getting out there? Well, he went and said, I'm going to go and earn an income, but completely, remove my need for paying rent. And so every dollar I'm then saving, and if I put myself out in a regional town, I've got no temptations to go to the movies or to go down to the pub and drop $250 on a night out. All of those things are gone. So I think if you can think, and we've got a couple of creative ways, we're going to get to those in a minute, but I think, point number three there is explore those creative ways and think outside of the square.
Yeah, and let's play devil's advocate, because the first two, get clear on my priorities, determine what my borrowing capacity is and my cash flow, universal, right? But its third decision that you just said is actually fork in the road, because you can actually go and, to your point, think of creative ways to get in, or what seems to be the most common treaded path is to then get into the poor me narrative, which is property is, you property investors are making it hard for us. We're never going to get in. The younger generation, like you and I personally know so many young people who've got in. So it's actually just not fact. And that's the message. It's actually not fact that you can't get in. Is it difficult? Yeah. Is the deposit saving hard? Yep. Is it impossible to get? No, it's not. And so that's really what we want to say here is there will come a point in time in the future, like when you're in parts of Europe, where it is just impossible to get into the property market. But that's not the case in Australia yet. We are moving towards that, but it's not the case yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to summarize or define the word compromise, what we're basically saying is What are you prepared to sacrifice? And when do you want to do your hard? Yeah, as part of that story.
It's a good point. Effort and sacrifice, and they're not the same. Effort is what I have to give up that I like doing, and what the sacrifice is what do I have to do that I don't like.
Yeah, and because you're right. I mean, in some cases, I might still have to give up the frequency of the things that I really love doing, because that could be another portion. Because if you can't still get there, but you keep all your non-negotiables, well, then you're not thinking hard enough and you're not making enough sacrifice. So if travel and experiences bring you great joy, but the reality is you only can do them 2 times a year or 1 time a year for a couple of years versus the 4 or 5 times a year that you were doing it, that's another piece of the equation that you've got to be thinking.
Yeah, we're just blessed in this country to have such an amazing lifestyle, but it comes with the flip side. It's expensive to live here. So rank your priorities. Get a clear picture of your borrowing capacity, your cash flow. Open your mind. Again, we're talking to people who can't get onto the market, so they've got to compromise or miss out. Open your mind to exploring alternate pathways. And I guess then get to work. Just decide which one that you actually want to do.
Well, I think if the reward is worth the effort, and what we are talking about here is the long-term outcome of the lifestyle by design you're trying to create, if that moves the dial enough for you, then go after it. Get on after it. What we are, to your point, Bryce, what we're seeing in some areas of society where that effort and that hard, brings excuses or brings denial, and then later in life they're going to regret that. And in fact, I've got some data in What's Making Property News that sort of supports what we're saying here about. So I'll give a little bit of away of it now, but one of the greatest regrets for people about getting on the property market is that they didn't get on sooner, and so it's about making those compromises.